Dover, Delaware, the Monster Mile in the first state. The concrete canyons of this speedway have been the undoing of many a driver, and yet victory here all so sweet. And today, under temperatures that may bump 70 degrees after it was nearly 80 yesterday, and a bit of wind from out of the northwest, low ceiling, but plenty of visibility to send the Sprint Cup cars out for their first practice session of the weekend. Dover's capital improvement program that has provided more fan amenities has now extended to the racetrack itself. You can see the lighter gray colored pit stalls where pit road has been extended and enlarged. There are now 43 pit stalls for the 43 cars, and the wall separating pit road from the racetrack has been extended almost to the middle of turns 3 and 4. This will, and also pit road has been widened by 4 feet. Now, this had been a very narrow pit road to get down. So these changes hopefully will improve the quality of the competition, which didn't need a whole lot of improving. This is one of our favorite racetracks, but for the fact this is the final weekend of NASCAR on Fox. So a little bittersweet as we come here.
Yeah, but you know, the thing that I always love about coming here is this racetrack's like a roller coaster ride. Man, you go down in the corners and you come up on the straightaways and you get loose and you walk her off the corner because you're coming up out of that hole the way you do. And now this new pit road, this should be a really fun weekend. The weather's supposed to be great. We shouldn't have to worry about rain. I'm just looking forward to this race. I think it's going to be exciting, one of the best ones we've seen this year.
And you know, this is a 1 mile racetrack, but you're traveling around here in about 24, 25 seconds, and you spend so much time in the corners. You're not on the straightaway long at all, but when you are on the straightaways, you're as in much banking almost as you are in some corners at some racetracks. But I applaud Dover for this pit road. We've been needing this for so long. We should not be racing anywhere that doesn't have enough pit boxes for all 43 competitors. But let me show you one thing, Daryl, that makes me nervous a little bit. It's the fact that I wish they could have worked it where being out of your pit box was the edge of the concrete there. If I'm a crew chief, I'm going to really be talking to my driver. Remember, there's still more concrete out there outside your pit box because that sometimes can be just a little misleading.
Yeah, we've seen that confuse a couple of drivers in the past. Tony Stewart comes to mind first, but that black line, yeah, I'm with you, Larry. They could have probably worked that out to where that concrete and the asphalt maybe were matched up a little bit better, but the pit boxes are much bigger. They're 28 feet in the past.
Longer and wider.
Yeah, and I think they're 32 feet wide now, or long now. So we're going to have a lot more room to operate, which should make everybody's day on pit road a little easier.
I think the whole sport is happy to get out of Charlotte with just 2 days of rain, because the forecast going into Tuesday and Wednesday didn't look all that sporty either.
Come a long way on the arc I'm building down there.
Matt Kenseth, 2 victories, 5 top 10s this year. Of course, he won the first 2 races of the season. And Elliott Sadler there. Here's Kenseth and Dick Berger. This is a team that is hoping to turn around and reclaim the winning ways that got them started this year.
Well, what better place to do it? This is Matt Kenseth's very favorite racetrack, Mike. His record here in the last 6 races is absolutely astounding. He has led 626 laps in those 6 races, finished 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th in 4 of them. The other 2, his engine failed him while he was leading. He ran out of gas while he was leading. Matt Kenseth, no question, will be a factor this weekend. Matt Yoakum.
Dick Berger last year, Kyle Busch was more than the attraction. He had the e-ticket ride going to victory lane. In fact, when you look at KB's racing resume here at Dover, he's won in all 3 of NASCAR's top division, the trucks, the Nationwide, and the Sprint Cup Series. Pulling back in now, this is the car that he led the most laps with and went to victory lane back in Bristol on the concrete in Thunder Valley. He says the car pretty good early on, thinks the track will come to them, wants to work a little bit in the back area of the race car. He's going to run all 3 divisions this weekend, so it could be huge for Kyle Busch fans.
It's going to be a long and busy weekend. And Kyle says, you know, we asked him, does it wear him down? Does it tire him out? He says, oh no. He says, give me a race car. I want to drive it.
When I look at poor Kyle Busch, though, if there's anybody that's glad to be out of Lowe's Motor Speedway, it's Kyle Busch. The man led the most laps in both races. Mother Nature just was not a Kyle Busch fan.
No, but I tell you a guy that I think is a Mother Nature fan and loved David Ruderman this past weekend. One thing I think we failed to recognize about David, he is now he's one of those elites that's won a race in all 3 major series, trucks, nationwide, and then Cup this past Sunday. So that's an accomplishment that a lot of drivers would like to be able to put on their resume.
Is there a home field advantage at a NASCAR track? If you'll ask Martin Truex, he'll say yes. He's from Mayetta, New Jersey, and he tops this practice session in the early going. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice brought to you by the Harley-Davidson Super Ride. Take the ride of your life today. And by Coors Light. Introducing the Coors Light 12-ounce cold activated can. When the mountains turns blue, your beer is as cold as the Rockies.
You know, Mike, there's some guys, and we talked about Kyle Busch and his race car that he had at Bristol. It's what we always call the concrete car. There's some guys that really like the concrete. It's got a different feel to it. It's a little bumpy. It got a little chatter in the tires. But there's some guys that really take to that and like the feel of a car racing on concrete. And as we look at Jeff Gordon, shot to the top of the chart there, passing Mr. Truex.
Yeah, 23:35. He really only ran 1 lap, so they must be working on qualifying right now.
And then there are some guys that just like any kind of racetrack. They don't really care what it is, where it is, or what kind of car or truck it is.
Number 1 example, the 18 car Kyle Busch.
Looking at.
If you have any doubt about Kyle Busch's talent as a racer, look what he has done on the road courses, a type of racing that before he came, to Nationwide and Cup was completely unfamiliar to him. Ryan Newman, pole sitter more often than not. For a while, Ryan was winning the pole 1 every 4 races, and runner-up last week at Lowe's.
Yeah, runner-up, had a pole last week at Lowe's, so he's back on track a little bit, I guess.
I mean, the biggest thing, you just saw it on the graphic there, 4 straight top 5 finishes the last 4 races for Ryan Newman.
But the biggest story in NASCAR this week and maybe this season is right here. A change at Hendrick Motorsports for the key players supporting Dale Earnhardt Jr. Here's Dick Bergman with the story.
Well, Brian Weitzel is going to take over as the crew chief this weekend. This is a 1-weekend deal. Lance McGrew will be the crew chief for Junior next weekend. Weitzel was already committed to working with Keselowski in the 25 for this weekend, so they stuck with that plan. But it's kind of been a big surprise, even though I think a lot of people knew that it was coming. Junior, meanwhile, is out of the car already, debriefing with his crew chief, his car chief, and other the engineers that are here. Doesn't like the way the car is handling, says there's just too much travel in it, so there are going to be major changes in Junior's car before he goes back out again. They've got the wheel scales here, so they're going to scale it, they're going to change the front bump stops, and he's going to be in the garage for a while.
Well, Darrell, what I found compelling about the Hendrick announcement, and here are the basic details, is they're going to take Rex Stump, their chief chassis engineer. They're going to take all of the resources that were spread among Hendrick Motorsports, take several key players, and devote them full time to Dale Jr. This is everything we've got to get that team to where it needs to perform.
Well, that's exactly what Rick told me yesterday. He said, I'm giving them, this is the best we got, and this is the best we can do with the changes that need to be made.
So, Larry, the question I have is, by taking Brian Weitzel full time over to the 88, Rex Stump to the 88, is this in any way going to perhaps hinder the performance of the other 3 Hendrick teams? Now, certainly everybody shares information and all, but with this shift, what does this mean for Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Mark Martin?
Well, I think, and Darrell can certainly elaborate on this probably even better than I can, because he knows the Hendrick Motorsports structure. But I think they have such a brain trust over there that Rick Hendrick will never, ever dilute one effort to fix another effort. And the one thing I do want to say here, I talked to Brian Weitzel this morning. He made a great point, because my question, because I really didn't know, what's happening with Tony Ure Jr. You just saw the graphic going to research and development. What's going to actually happen is Lance McGrew and Tony Ure Jr. are just going to swap. They're going to swap rows. This is what Lance McGrew has been doing, research and development, plus looking after Brad Keselowski in the 25 car when Brad would run races. So really those guys are just swapping rows. And Brian made a great point. We want more than 4 crew chiefs in this organization, because when you think of back a few years ago when Chad Knaus and Steve Letarte had a problem with suspended, they didn't miss a single beat because they had depth. They had more crew chiefs in place there.
You talk about whether they get behind or not. Rick Stump, he is the chief car builder. He oversees all the car building. So unless they wreck a lot of race cars, they probably got a pretty good inventory of cars right now. So if they can keep all the cars they got intact, that kind of frees him up to do other things. So I know last year he had to go back. He was on the pit box last year with Tony Jr. And he had to end up going back about middle of the year or so and build some new race cars, which took him off the pit box.
Right, we'll have more on this story, of course, as the weekend goes on. Let's see. Jeff Burton is 20th in this session with a quick lap of 23.75. And here is Dave Blaney, who right now is 39th, but after only 2 laps on track.
Yeah, right now of our Go Homers, we have 47 cars here. All cars have practice. The fastest of the Go Homers is Joe Nemechek in that 87 car. Right now he's 6th quickest.
Pretty interesting top 10 when you think about it, though. You got Gordon and Johnson up there first and second, and Kyle. You got Truex, who looks mighty fast around here today, Larry. And then you got Hamlin. And then you got Joe Nemechek there in 6th. Montoya, Mark Martin, Edwards, and Casey Mears shows up in the top 10 for a change.
You know, I talked to Juan Pablo Montoya, who watched Casey Kane in the 9 car make a run here, but I talked to Juan Pablo Montoya yesterday up at the golf tournament, Artie Kempner, Autism tournament up there in Wilmington, and Juan said, you know, Brian and Brian Patty is crew chief, we've been together a year. And he said, now we roll into these racetracks and we're fast and close right off the truck, and we just spend the rest of the weekend fine-tuning. And I think their performance week in and week out, including last week at Lowe's, supports that.
Yeah, there's some good camaraderie going on there between Brian and Juan. And really and truly, that means so much. And that was a thing I think that Rick struggled with Tony Jr. and Dale Jr. They've been together so long, and they knew each other so well. They have covered for each other for, you know, good days, bad days. That was a hard thing about changing that situation, was trying to put somebody over there that Dale Jr. would have that kind of relationship with.
Right, but looking at Montoya's car being worked on in the garage, I think that was a top 3 car last week. If we run the whole 600 miles, Montoya finishes in the top 3,
good on the
and
run.
Maybe has a shot to win it.
Yeah, he was right on target.
Mark Martin raises the bar. 23.27 is his fastest lap. Kyle Busch is 4th, but might have had a little bit of tire rub or something he wanted to fix on his own. Matt?
And you can call it quadruple duty for Kyle Busch this weekend. Contact on the racetrack with a slower vehicle. Kyle came on the radio and said, when we come back in, they're going to make a trip down to the NASCAR hauler and try to find John Darby. Wesley Sherrill, the car chief, asked, he goes, the 06, what's his name? I said, that would be Canadian Trevor Boyd. That's who he made contact with. Cosmetic damage. They've already beat that out with a hammer, making some more changes up in that left front. But definitely some damage, though, on the 18.
Well, the lap time differential between the two, 2.5 seconds.
I saw that happen, and what happened was the 06, and he's not very fast. Instead of being around the bottom of the racetrack and trying to, you know, maybe stay out of people's way, he was right up in the middle of the racetrack, off at turn 4 here.
Greg Biffle, next care on his 3M Ford for Roush Fenway Racing this week.
You know, we were talking about, I think, Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth earlier. And even though those guys, Roush Fenway across the board as an operation, they won the first 2 races of the year with Matt Kenseth at Daytona and Auto Club Speedway, but nothing like their performance last year. I've got to believe this will be a pretty good measuring stick for how Roush Fenway is, because you go back to the race in the fall last year, 1, 2, 3. The Roush Fenway cars dominated that race.
We gave our report cards last week on NASCAR on Fox. Obviously not everyone was thrilled with their grades, and I guess we pass along what our teachers told us. Work a little harder, your grade will improve.
We've said it for 9 years. We do not make this stuff up. We just talk about what we see.
Well, you know, I don't know how many times you can say it. It's a performance-based industry. I don't care if you're Dale Jr. or if you're 83 Scott or 82 Scott Speed. I don't care who you are. It's a performance-based industry, and that's how you get a guy high grade. You perform.
Now here's a good example. Brian Vickers last week at Charlotte. For most of the race, Darrell, he was the fastest car on the racetrack. On one pit stop, he came out 10 positions behind where he came in. And I think I read on SI.com that over 3 pit stops he lost a total of 20 positions, and then due to tire strategy on the last stop gained 3 back. So a net loss of 17 spots on pit road for what was a very quick car on the track.
Yeah, and you know, as a driver, I mean, you go home and something like that happens, and you're just, the driver beats himself up. But just think about if you go home and your pit crew had a day like that. You got 7 guys that went over that wall on Sunday that are all beating themselves up and say, what are we going to do?
Speaking of what are we going to do, you see here right here after the Lowe's race, Robbie Gordon, a 7 car who had a 3rd place finish. Kurt Almquist, his crew chief, doing the strategy, a lot like Tony Gibson and Rodney Childers. In post-race inspection, NASCAR found that the rear end housing had too much toe out in it. They only allow you 1 degree, which is about 7/16 of an inch. I talked to Kurt Almquist. He said we were maybe 2/10 of a degree too heavy. You can see there Robbie Gordon penalized 50 driver and owner points. Crew chief Kurt Almquist fined $50,000, as well as put on probation until the end of the year.
Richmond tankless water heaters and Menards on his number 7.
Watch this ride up out of turn 2. And of course, it's same thing up out of turn 4. But watch these cars about that black line back here as they come up out of that hole right there. That is what you work hard on here. Being able to keep the power down, come up out of that hole, up on the straightaway. The car gets really, really light right there. The car's got a lot of lift in it when it comes up out of the corner like that. And that's where having the right shock package and controlling keeping the tires on the ground, but letting the body move a little bit, it's what you really strive for here. Here's 3 and 4 coming up out of the corner. And you can see how they just, right about in here, the car just takes a big leap forward. Right there, you just see the car. You can see air. You can see space under the front air dam when the car comes up out of the corner like that. And that's what you work real hard on, is trying to control that. Here we are coming off turn 2 again. And just watch the cars as they leap out of there and see how they get loose.
Yeah.
That's your challenge here.
Car gets light right there.
It just gets like it's like somebody picks it up.
This track was built in 1969 and it was asphalt. And after several repavings, they thought that the climate here would be tempered enough that they could try concrete and have a workable surface, and it's turned out terrific.
Well, when it was asphalt, we'd come here, look like an eggshell. It looked like an egg. It had been a boiled egg. It had been just cracked all over. And they put that tar in those cracks.
Right.
And then on a hot, sunny day, that tar would come up out of those cracks, and you felt like you were racing on an ice rink. You'd be in the gas, hit one of those tar places, and the car would just take off. We smoked the tires there. You smoke all 4 tires here back when it was asphalt.
Bobby Labonte 19th in this practice session. You won't want to miss trackside tonight from Dover. Mark Martin and crew chief Alan Gustafson will talk about what's led to their fast start in 2009, and Sprint All-Star winner Tony Stewart joins the Friday night party at the Speed Stage. That is tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, trackside live from Dover. And Dick Berger, and right now, Mark Martin tops the speed chart.
Yeah, he is the fastest man in Delaware, Mike, and it's no surprise. Mark's record here is absolutely fabulous. 4 Cup wins, 4 Cup poles. First time he ever came here with a nationwide car, he won the race. He said that this car has got more grip than he had expected. Not sure what to attribute that to. Car is just a little bit loose. Mark has asked for minor changes in the car. Nothing major. So they have rolled off the truck fast. with the number 5.
You know, that's one thing I always liked about the concrete surface. Whatever grip it has, as long as the weather don't go through a big swing. Now, I do get a feeling it's going to be much hotter on Sunday, but it's not as conducive to temperature changes as an asphalt surface. It's more predictable, I think.
I think the thing I probably don't like about it, though, is the chattering that you get. All those little expansion joints. I mean, I say it every time we come here, but it's like riding down a concrete highway in your passenger car. You know, you get that ta-doom, 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 ta-doom.
Casey Mears has ta-doomed his way to 9th place on the board. He's been, in fact, he's been top 10 since they've unloaded.
It's kind of making me wonder, Larry. See these guys going back out. If you know, sticker tires are normally what you would qualify on, or that's your tire of choice. Looks like these guys go out and make one run on these tires, go back out and actually go faster.
And this is actually the same tire package, left and right, that we ran here in the fall. Also the same tire combination we'll race in Michigan in a couple of weeks.
And the other thing is, like Mark Martin, I keep watching his time. He keeps going faster and faster, 23, 27. You also you got to get comfortable here, because this place is like, makes you dizzy. I mean, this is like Bristol on steroids. You really drive this track hard as you do Bristol. And the tip here is to get off the gas early into the corner. But, man, you come up out of these turns. That's why the cars jump around the way they do coming off the corner. You're carrying so much exit speed here. That's how you go fast.
Now, Joe Nemechek is 11th. Carl Edwards just jumped to 2nd on the chart.
Look at that. Got stuff written all over his car.
Again, second week in a row.
We like that.
Yeah, that's the same sponsor that they had last week at Lowe's Motor Speedway. I think they have them in place for a few weeks.
Jeff Burton getting a tire sheet. Matt?
Mike, 3 race runs for Jeff Burton. Improvement on every one. After the first one, he said he had no control whatsoever on entry into the corner. It was pretty bad. Then the second run, they'd made a lot of headway, said it was free, but not terrible. The last run, he said, we really have a good car. We could race it like it is right now. Although a few small changes he wants to make to it, they're going to swap over to their qualifying setup, which some teams have already started out this practice session with. And one trend that we've talked about in the past here, typically not a lot of rubber on this racetrack early. You're going to see cording, and going down the cars in my area of the garage, the majority all have either typically on the right rear or right front, but we are seeing a little bit of cording early on, but that'll change as more rubber gets into this racetrack.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of rain here last night. I mean, it rained pretty hard here at the Speedway last night, and of course concrete, it's a little hard on the tires until they do get that rubber built up, and then there's an absolutely perfect point where there's enough rubber in the track that the tires don't wear. Then it goes the other way. Then it gets all that buildup on top of the racetrack, on top of the concrete. You start sliding around, that's when you look for a higher groove.
Yeah, with the weather forecast being as good as it is tomorrow, I just would not get too caught up in race runs today, because there's not much rubber on the track. We've got the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race later on this afternoon. It'll be a different racetrack we roll in here tomorrow.
And we do have a new pit road. We know that. It's beautiful. I love it. But you're going to have the same old problems. You still got to get on. You still got to get off.
Paul Menard, 25th in this session. And this is rookie Scott Speed, who is 43rd after 15 laps. A couple of changes to the entry list here at Dover. Gunselman Racing was entered with Todd Bodine and withdrew. They are not here. And also Mayfield Racing was pre-entered with J.J. Yaley, who began driving that car last week. But the word came down a day or so ago that car would not be making the trip to Dover, that the Mayfield team is skipping this race, and we'll await further word on their future. In fact, both of the teams that were really bright spots in this economic downturn back at Daytona, Jeremy Mayfield and Tommy Baldwin Racing, have undergone changes. Scott Riggs has left Tommy Baldwin. Kind of a discussion about the progress they were making, and Riggs not wanting to do any start in parks as that team struggles for funding. They're going to have 3 different drivers. Mike Skinner, who is here this weekend, Patrick Carpentier, and Brian Simo will run the road races for Tommy, and they do intend to run the whole season.
You know, and we said this back in February. You start in February with a little nest egg. You've got the money, you know, over the winter, you're able to get a few things pulled together, and you hit the road. In Daytona, I mean, that's most logically where you're going to do the best, because you go there the best prepared. But every week, it gets harder and harder. And every week, that nest egg gets smaller and smaller, till finally, at some point, you got to say, time out. Right. I got to have some relief here. I got to cut my losses. And so if you're not here today or this weekend, that's probably where you are. We're about at that point where you've run out of resources.
So looking at Jamie McMurray, whose Crown Royal Ford is 16th right now. We'll go to the garage for a story who started a team that started the preseason without a full-time sponsor, and just look at them now. Dick?
Yeah, NASCAR's newest top division winner, David Rudiman. What has your time been like since becoming a winner in the top series?
It's been a little different. You know, we had some TV stuff and a bunch of call-ins and going to the shop and some parties and stuff like that. But, you know, that's been great to have with the Aarons and Michael Waltrip Racing and everybody. But, you know, today's back to work. I mean, you got to forget all about last week, and you're going to try to do the same thing this week.
And this morning in the media center, David Rudiman was asked why so many people now seem to want to go to Michael Waltrip Racing. And what'd you tell him, David?
I told him because I was there, which is a complete joke, but I got a good laugh out of the media center.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on last weekend. That's great.
There's a pretty strong rumor around the garage that one top Chevrolet driver may be headed to MWR for 2010.
Another Chevrolet driver just went to the top of the charts. A man named Jimmy Johnson, fastest in this practice now.
Did I just see Billy Badbutt there with David? I did.
He's right there with him. Taking care of the boy.
Opening round of practice for the Sprint Cup Series. And, you know, talk about teams that are capable of lifting their grade this weekend. Earnhardt Ganassi Racing right now has Martin Truex Jr. 3rd and Juan Montoya 4th on the speed chart. Wow.
Yeah. And as I watched that car come in just in, Larry, one thing that came to mind was, if we look back in turns 3 and 4 where they've been doing some work, you know, they make a nice sealer that they used to put on this racetrack when it was asphalt. You could have easily sealed that strip with some black sealer that would have would have given you the look that we were talking about. See, back in here is how dark it is, and I don't know if it's been sealed or not, but it'd have been real easy to just come around there with that sealer and gone along that edge and actually covered up that little bit of concrete.
Well, we certainly applaud, though, what they've done.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing that I applaud what they've done, which I have always questioned, if you look right there on the inside wall of the front stretch, not an improvement to the pit road, but we now have a safer barrier on the inside wall of the front stretch. And we know that can get heavy populated down there on that inside wall.
But you know what I'm most happy about? We have asked and asked and asked, and television up here, we watch the race, and boy, they need to do something to pit road. Drivers say, oh boy, they need to do something to pit road. What I like is we finally got something done to pit road, and we don't, you know, we weren't complaining about it because it affected our job. We just started complaining about it because we hear the competitors talking about how it affected their job.
And to the track's credit, they announced 6 years ago, they announced a 5-year capital improvement plan, and it was their decision, with NASCAR's blessing, that the first 3 or 4 years of the improvement were dedicated to improvements for the fans and amenities for the fans. But this has been part of the program all along, was to reconfigure pit road, have 43 stalls, complete the safer barriers. And so this is the 5th year of the 5-year plan. And we're just very glad that it's worked out so well here.
See Kevin Harvick here in the 29 car. Kind of picked up where he left off at Lowe's the last couple of weeks. Right now, that 29 car is 36th quickest. Had all types of issues last week. Ended up finishing 41st.
John Andretti is back after his run in the Indianapolis 500, where he finished top 20. And
figured he'd be in Milwaukee this weekend. Don't they?
Yes, they are.
They run in Milwaukee this week.
That's traditional, Darrell. The Milwaukee Mile always hosts the Indy cars the week after the 500. I see black helicopters.
It's landing.
They're not looking for us, are they?
I don't know.
I hope not.
You know, I can actually see that one.
Actually, I do
Darrell
know.
sees them all the time.
Actually, I do know.
That's a black helicopter painted blue, though.
Yeah.
They started doing that.
It's not officially a black helicopter. Nine truck races at Dover, 9 different winners. And to see who will end up in victory lane tonight, you're just going to have to watch. Beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern. Camping World Truck Series tonight at 8, only on Speed.
Oh, Ron Hornaday on the pole.
I'll tell you who's I think making some pretty good progress here, boys. At 88 car, he just made a qualifying run, and he jumped up to 8 quick. Car looked really good. I think they're tweaking that baby and getting her dialed in.
Well, and we've seen this so many times, Daryl, and this is where, you know, certainly Rick Hendrick and the people at Hendrick Motorsports are so smart. Because I got asked so many times this week, well, what if they don't run good at Dover? Well, what if they run a race? One race is not going to make or break. This is for the long haul. Listen, these changes are being made.
Did anybody watch Charlotte last week? I mean, how could anything would be an improvement over last week? And I think that's you know, what if they don't run good here? Well, I think they're going to be making progress.
Yes, sir.
I think that's the big thing.
And if they win the race, you can't run the flag up the pole immediately.
Oh, no.
We've got to see what happens long haul.
Carl now 9th in this session. He put up a lap that was 2nd fastest, and now has been pushed down to 9th. Well, came in, decided to turn around, go back out.
And just a little bit more, Rick, it just shows how much respect he had for Dale Jr. and Tony Jr. I mean, he literally sat there and waited and hoping and praying that maybe something good would happen to those two guys and they could get the monkey off their back.
Right.
But it just doesn't look like it was going to happen.
Jamie Mack 18th right now with a 23.58.
He's run 15 laps total, like Donnie Wingo and that group may be working on some race runs.
And Carl decided to turn around and come right back out. Nice weather for ducks.
Had a good finish at Lowe's, and you know what? They needed a good finish. They ended up finishing 4th, and because right now they're 11th in the points, only 9 points to the good.
But I don't think we've heard the last of this 99 group. I just really think oh, good grief. That was almost a disaster for Mike Bliss right there. That was a crash that he avoided. But back on the 99 car, I think that they are looking at what the 48 car has done the last 3 years. Use the first 26 races to fix things, work on things, try things, setups, strategies. And then when the 10 race comes, the shootout comes, the chase, they'll be ready to go.
But still, Daryl, you could have got long odds on Carl Edwards not winning a race before June.
True.
Considering he won 9 races last year.
True.
But you know, guys, you know, we look at numbers a lot, and as you mentioned, Mike, at the show, this is our last weekend of NASCAR on Fox, which also means we're halfway through the race to the chase. 13 down, 13 to go after Dover. And if you believe in the numbers, since we went to 12 drivers in the chase, when we leave here and when we leave Richmond in early September, 10 of those same 12 drivers, all the years we've had top 12, has still been in the top 12 when we leave Richmond. Only 2 drivers have fallen out of it.
But Larry, I think that's gonna change for just the reasons we're talking about. More teams are realizing that the race really is to get in the chase, and maybe you can have some mulligans in the first part of the season to get you to running better as you get closer to Richmond.
The thing, and I haven't studied the numbers for a period of time, but it appears to me that if you look back to, I think it's Clint Boyer, about 17th or 18th, all the way up to 6th place, that could change in 1 or 2 weeks. There's not that big a point difference in those guys in that little box right there. Ah, Rudy Tootie.
Yeah, Mike, Jeff Burton, who is in 8th, and Brian Vickers or Clint Boyer, who's in 17th, there's only 153 points separating those drivers.
Right, but look at Matt Kenseth proved you can do it. He came from 23rd after 12 races to make it into the chase in 2005.
Yeah, Matt just likes to do stuff like that. He likes to start way in the back and win races and kind of fly. I think he just.
I don't know how much he likes it, but he sure is good at it.
I think he flies under the radar, to tell you the truth. He's just that kind of guy.
Jeff Gordon is fastest as practice rolls on.
Trust me, they wouldn't.
On the next all-new episode of Wrecked, a container truck tips over on a Chicago highway, and the recovery proves to be complicated. It's an all-new Wrecked, Life in the Crash Lane, Thursday at 10 Eastern. You know, that show is mildly addictive.
Oh, I know.
What I have learned from that show is I don't ever want to be in that position.
No.
Having those guys tow my car. My goodness.
It's amazing all the things they go through to get a wreck turn, tractor and trailer turned back over, or get one up, in the ditch, or I mean, they put on a show.
That's pretty cool. Yep.
But you still felt like they should have just let the air out of the tires in that one trailer.
That would have gotten that thing out from under that underpass, I'm telling you. A lot better than jacking up and taking the wheels off of it.
However, all right, you're the tow truck company. What do you think pays better?
You drive up and you look at the situation, you say, dummy, talking to the guy that owns the trailer, because he could have done that.
He could have let the tires. If he'd let the tires out and driven out from under, they wouldn't need to be there.
So they say, dummy, and they look at the situation. They say, well, we know what to do.
Lesson learned. Yep.
The track was not closed, but there was not a car out there for about 4 or 5 minutes a while ago. Now we're back to about 5 or 6 out there. I get a feeling, though, a lot like what they were reporting from down in the garage, that a lot of teams right now are maybe making the transition from race trim to qualifying trim.
I think you're exactly right. And here may come one off turn 4 right now, although we're looking off turn 2, looking at Mark Truex.
Now here's another thing. Sometimes it's the blind obvious. See the inside wall there, and this area down here at the exit of turn 2. Artie, can we please go back to the last shot? Sorry. If you drive your motor coach out from the garage area and along here to the crossover, if you drive down here, you will wipe the left side of the coach off on that wall because of the banking. Now, no, I have not done that myself, but it's just one of those things you need to learn when you come to the racetrack. Different tracks have their own different nuances, and never felt that coach would be part of that problem, but
it sounds like something maybe Mike Phillips, that drives motor coaches periodically for the NASCAR family, possibly might.
No, he would hang it under this bridge right here.
Yeah,
that's where he would mess up.
Somewhere there's a fat boy involved. I just know there is in this story. Bergie.
Well, hanging out here with Carl Edwards in the garage area, doing more talking than watching, actually. And with this guy, and why not? Because his last 5 finishes here at Dover, he has finished 3rd or better in all of them. For the Carl Edwards fans out there waiting for that first win in 2009, is this your big weekend?
It looks like it right now. This car is great. I mean, this Aflac Fusion it was really fast. First run, we made 2 qualifying runs, and we're 5th on the board right now. So, I hope this is the week that we get a win. It's been 12 races, I guess. It feels like 1,200. So we're ready to get back to victory lane, and it's probably the fastest car we've had off the truck yet.
Yeah, this guy doesn't win for 2 weeks, and people say, oh, what's wrong? There's something terrible happening, because we're so used to seeing Carl Edwards going home with the big trophy.
I'll tell you one thing, probably one of the most exciting races that I've seen anywhere was when Matt and Carl and Greg last year,
right here,
those 3 teammates, I mean, they were racing not like they were teammates, but like they were enemies. I mean, they were going after each other. Pretty exciting stuff.
You know, we've all read during the week about David Rudiman's win, and yes, he only led laps under caution. However, Terry Labonte did that at Darlington in 1980. The only laps that were led by a race winner under caution. And some people are saying that David Rudiman fell into the wind, backed into the wind, and to that I say baloney.
Right. Absolutely.
The 12 drivers in front of David Rudiman and their crew chiefs had the same choice to make. They chose to pit, thinking that the rain would let up enough to get the race restarted. David and Ryan and Robbie Gordon chose to stay out, thinking that that was their best chance, was to have track position rather than fresh tires. And Mother Nature made the call.
Yeah, sometimes your bad luck turns out to be your good luck.
Right.
The reason they stayed out at that point was they had a lot of work they wanted to do to the car. So they wanted to stay out there until everybody had made their pit stops. Then they would come in at the head of the field and have the maximum amount of time to work on the car. That was their plan.
But I said it at the moment it happened, and I'm going to still say it 5 days later. I was absolutely amazed that more cars that were at the back of the field didn't stay out as Robbie Gordon in the 7 did.
Martin Truex, the hometown hero. If Mayetta, New Jersey is close enough to Delaware to be your hometown. Talking with Bogota, Colombia's Juan Paulo Montoya. And they have been right, well, they're 4th and 6th right now. They've been up near the top 5 or in the top 5 all this practice.
Sterling Marlin thought he was from Columbia, Tennessee, and he said, I've never run into him.
Never met him,
I've
huh?
never met him before.
Yeah, Columbia and Columbia are a little different.
Totally different.
You know, when I look at those two drivers, along with Tony Glover, one of the competition directors over there, I hate so much that the situation happened for Eric Almirola and they had to dissolve that team. But I think this team, this operation is so much better off just with their surroundings, with just 2 race teams to focus on. And you can almost see it in their performance. Plus, I think finally, with the merger coming together so late in the game, they're finally reaping the reward for merging the 2 operations.
Saw Tony Glover there. You know, he works over there at Ganassi, and I can't. Every time I see Tony, I can't help but think of Sterling.
Right.
Because they were such a force in that 4-car, winning the Daytona 500 and other races, and just hearing those 2 have a conversation. Hey, Glove. You know, it never called him Glover. Always called him Glove. Yeah, what are you gonna do, huh?
Now, we saw Marcus Ambrose a second ago. While I was coming into the track this morning to meet with you and Larry and our weekly driver meeting, I'm over at the crossover bridge, and here comes somebody at a dead run, and it's Marcus Ambrose. Comes to the bridge, crossed the bridge at a dead run. He was just on his morning workout routine.
Wow.
I run up to that first level right there,
stride.
And then I take a little break, and then I run up to that second level over there, take a little break, and then I finally make it across to the other side.
I kind of sneak up on it.
Yeah, that's me too.
Well, after what I heard you ate at Sambo's last night, I'm shocked you can even make it across that bridge.
You care to run that down for the folks?
Well, Miss Elva over there, she always takes such great care of it.
Obviously.
And all the drivers and everybody that goes there to eat. And of course, I love crab cakes. So I had a couple of crab cake sandwiches, and I'm not talking about, you know, like little bitty.
Right.
These things are huge. I had 20 boiled shrimp and great big ones. I had a bowl of coleslaw, order of French fries, and then she would not let me leave until I had strawberry shortcake.
Wow.
So, you know, I slept really well last night.
Sambo's is in, what is it, Leipzig?
Yeah.
Delaware, just north of the racetrack, Route 9.
The right way. I call it lipstick, but I think it's probably you're closer than I am.
And it's a favorite of everybody when we come to Delaware.
Yeah, it was packed full of drivers and crew members last night. Ryan Newman was there, Casey Kane. Some people were having a birthday party. Saw Mike Bliss, Jason Keller. I don't know.
They spread the newspaper out on the tables and just pour the food out there and clean up.
Casey Kane, I don't reckon he had ever been there, or else he had never eaten a crab before. And somebody, they showed him how a couple of times, and all you could hear, it sounded like a woodpecker over there pecking on something. Bam, 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 bam. And then he'd just kind of sit there and look at it like, now what do I do?
It is a little intimidating the first time.
That's why I get the crab cakes. They're
all done. Yeah. I'm with you. Jimmy Johnson, 5th fastest. There's Casey.
There he is. He had a big old platter of crab last night.
Now, you know, when we beat race teams up or operations up, we always want to make sure and point out something good. For the first time, Richard Petty Motorsports, with this 9 car, they have showed up here this weekend with that new Dodge engine. So we'll see how things go. I'm going to tell you, he had a great race car at Lowe's Motor Speedway last week.
But let's talk about this new Dodge engine package a little bit, because this is not simply a matter of pulling out the old engine and dropping the new one in its place. This is a very involved and, let's add, very expensive proposition to do this changeover.
You know, Larry, as we look at this rear wing, one of the things that some of the guys are saying that they like to see NASCAR do is see how close it actually touches almost the deck lid right there. And it doesn't have much of an angle on it. Now, it does have the wicker bill across the top right there. But what the teams are saying that if they could raise that wing up about an inch, then you could get air not over underneath it, but on the top of it, you get air underneath of it, and that's what makes a wing more effective. Plus, it's not at much of an angle. I mean, you could actually angle that up a little bit more, and you could blow the rear tires out if you put enough angle on it.
Yeah, right now NASCAR says 0 to 16 degrees, which I think most teams run 16 degrees.
Dick Berggren.
Kane is in his car. He's getting ready to go out and do a mock qualifying run, Mike. He has been very pleased with the performance of that car. Said it's sticking great, it's turning great, doing everything just right. And when he voiced those opinions to his crew, he was 17th on the board. Expect him to pick up considerably now. They are about to do a mock qualifying run.
Kyle Busch has gone back to the top of the chart. Nope, not anymore. Jeff Gordon just knocked him off. First lap under 23 seconds today goes to Jeff Gordon. Sunday, the Ultimate NASCAR pre-race show. NASCAR race day on Speed. Find out what changed at Dover will make racing at the Monster Mile even better. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot, live 11:30. I'm sure that's a.m. Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. Be there.
Larry, look at those times. Jeff Gordon's at a 22.98. Then you got a 23.01, a 23.05, a 23.07, a 23.07, and a 23.08 down to Mark Truex in 6th.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Gordon's at a 22.98, and let's just pick a car here. Scott Speed is 40th at a 23.71, so roughly less than 3/4 of a second separating the top 40 cars.
Smoke. See what the Smoke's got laid up for him. He's 34th right now. This could be a good little run right here. Looks like he's riding that bottom.
I get a feeling they've been working on race runs. They might be in qualifying trim now as we've got about 30 minutes to go in this practice session.
But see how the front of that car comes up in the air. See, it's down right there now. When it comes up on the straightaway, that thing will come up off the bottom. You got to have that front end up like that. You got to have some travel here. So you got to get that front end up in the air down the straightaway a little bit and then let it settle back down in the turn.
Yeah, he goes to 21st quickest, actually. We're starting to see the speed chart change a lot practice sheet because I think more and more cars are making practice qualifying runs.
Let's not forget that Wednesday is the Prelude to the Dream, live on pay-per-view at Eldora Speedway on the dirt. Tony and all his rowdy buddies will be in their dirt cars to have some fun and raise money for a couple of great causes.
Put me in that category. I don't have many rowdy buddies left. So it's kind of fun to go up there and do that. It's the most fun weekend or race that I think I go to. I mean, to watch our guys who are experts and who are so precise on asphalt get on that dirt and sling those cars around that little racetrack. It's fascinating to watch.
It's a great time, and the greatest thing is seeing the smiles on the faces of these drivers who are usually so serious about what they have to do on Saturdays and Sundays.
I just hope that Robbie Gordon drives Scott Bloomquist's car again.
Wow.
Because Robbie put a show on the track, and Scott was down there in the infield putting a show on in the infield, trying to get Robbie to run a different line around the racetrack.
Yep.
Greg Biffle goes to the top of the charts at a 22. In fact, he runs 2/1000ths of a second quicker than Jeff Gordon. 22.984 to a 22.986.
Tight.
You know, Mike, you proposed a question a while ago, and I don't know that I really did a good, solid job of answering it, that you can't just take the new Dodge engine and put it in where you've had the old one. You almost have to build the car around it. It's almost like when the Chevrolet teams went from the SB2 to the R07. It's headers, it's tailpipes, it's the way the car is plumbed, it's the way the car is wired.
Well, it starts out, isn't the block shorter,
much shorter
dimensionally than the block of the old engine, and that changes everything.
Right.
But I think the things that the Dodge teams are really going to like about it, the two things that we've learned, is it's lighter. It's about 20 pounds lighter, and that just, those old front tires go, when you take 20 pounds off those front tires. Plus, it's not that it makes a bunch more horsepower, but it has more grunt, has more bottom end torque to drive you up the hill off the corner to a place like Dover.
Good point. So one of Jack Roush's drivers, Greg Biffle, now tops the speed chart. New name at the top of the speed chart, and if you heard us joking earlier about David Rudeman and how he won that race last week, Darrell just had the best line of all.
Yep, I said he just backed into the fastest time.
Yeah.
That may be the best line of 2009 so far. Or
Maybe it's getting ready to rain. I'm not sure which.
No, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. But David is fastest at a 22.90. There's his teammate Marcus Ambrose, 17th at a 23.26.
Mikey's not too bad either. He's over at 27th. So they got their cars running good this weekend, all three of them.
Jimmy Johnson is the second fastest Chevy in this practice. Jeff Gordon, third overall quickest.
I think most of these guys, all they need is a number. They say, okay, Ruderman just ran a 90. Okay, well, I'll run out there and let me see what I can lay down.
So that's three drivers under 23 seconds, Ruderman, Biffle, and Gordon.
Let's watch this lap here. He's definitely on a practice qualifying run. He's 7th quickest right now, the 48 car of Jimmy Johnson. He picks up. That's his fastest lap, but he doesn't pick up any position. He stays 7th. 23.074.
Hard to get to the green. I felt slow to the green.
Sam Hornish, Roger Penske's Dodge, now 18th after 25 laps.
And honestly, another solid finish for this car last week. Ended up finishing 16th at Lowe's. I know I say this all the time, that when you look at our box scores, they have wins, top 5s, top 10s. But I think with where the competition is today, I tell guys in the garage here all the time, if you can have a top 20 finish week in and week out in this series, you're actually pretty solid.
Big jump for Sam, 10th fastest, and he is the second fastest Dodge, right behind his teammate Kurt Busch by only 3/100ths.
I can't believe the difference in Sam Hornish. And just watching him in the garage, watching him walk around the garage, seeing the interviews he does now, you know, he was not very confident last year. I think, matter of fact, I think he was maybe even considering doing something else. Says he wasn't, but I bet he was. But this year, totally different guy. He's animated. It's all lit up. Car's running good. He's sitting there 10th quick. And here's another guy that needs a win to get his season started. The 11 car, Matt.
DW, his car here at Dover acting like it will later on next week at the Prelude to the Dream when he runs the dirt race. It's just too free. The car is sideways on entry. One adjustment that he wants Chris Spider-Gill and the car chief to make when practice is over, they want to adjust the steering column. Not quite the angle that he wants. They just made a left rear spring change to try to tighten this race car up. Still a work in progress for Denny.
It's so important. And this place is physical. It'll beat you up. And so it's important to get those kind of issues out of the way today. Steering column, seat, mirrors, anything inside the race car that don't wait until Sunday morning and say, man, I meant to tell you about that seat, or,
right.
or 100 miles into the race.
Yeah.
Now here's Martin Truex starting a run. He has led this practice right now. Other folks have put up qualifying runs that have pushed him down to 9th. He has one victory in the Sprint Cup Series, and it came right here.
You know, we were talking about guys coming late in the game to make the chase. When you look at this car right here, they don't have a lot of bobbles left in their next 13 races, because right now he's 190 points out of the top 12. They've got to roll off some good runs here if they want to get there.
And Truex still 9th after that run. Jeff Gordon's back out, trying to improve on a 22.98.
I think a lot of these guys might be just trying to figure out what kind of tire combination they want to qualify on. Whether they want to go on stickers, scuffs. And most times you're wrecking these qualifying runs, you're playing with air pressure. Air up in the rights, down in the lefts, you know, just playing around with stuff like that, seeing where the best performance is.
It's funny you mentioned that, Darrell. You were talking about this concrete surface and the seams. Of all the places we go, yeah, it's important everywhere, but two things that are so critical, I think, because of the way this surface is: shock absorbers and the air pressure in those tires, whether you're getting ready to qualify or whether you're getting ready to race.
I can't tell you how many times, and we'll hear it a dozen times or better Sunday. Feel like I got 4 basketballs on my car. And that's just because of the way that concrete flexes the sidewalls of the tires, and it causes them to build up a lot more air probably than anywhere else we go.
Now this is a little odd for this practice. All of the Hendrick cars for opening practice, except Mark Martin, have run less than 10 laps. And Mark is pretty close on that. He's only run 12. Let's go down to Dick.
I'm in Dale Jr.'s area, Mike, and the heavy hitters are together here. Ken Howes, Rex Stump, Brian Weitzel are all here trying to help Junior. Right now he is 25th on the board, so he is deep in the serial order of those who are faster and those who are slower. They have just worked on the front end geometry a little bit with that car, and also a carburetor adjustment. They raised the float in that engine because Junior thought he was starving for fuel. Let's see what he can do this time around.
I mean, just look at that, Mike, Larry. That is a lot of brain power right there. And that's the kind of effort that they're putting into this 88 car this weekend, and probably for quite some time till they get it going right. That's everybody except the guys that are working on the other three cars that are available from Hendrick Motorsports in that camp right now.
Dale Jr.'s run 10 laps. His 5th of those laps was the quickest at a 23:27. Now he moves up to 18th at a 23:19. And puts him within 3/10 of David Rudiman.
Looked a little tail happy off of 4 there, and I think they're going to have to settle it down a little bit if he's going to pick up and move up in the top 10.
So a lot of short runs characterize this opening round of practice at Dover. David Rudiman quickest. Casey Kane just became the fastest Dodge in town, 22:93 for Kane. That's just thousandths quicker than Jeff Gordon, but by about 1/10 of a second he's quicker than Kurt Busch and David Stremme. There's a look at Casey, second fastest. Jack Roush with 3 cars in the top 7, Biffle, Kenseth, and Edwards.
And that's really not surprising, because we were talking about how they ran here in the fall of last year. It's Kenny Francis, Casey Kane's crew chief. They've been working with 2 things over there, I think, recently at Richard Petty Motorsports. Obviously getting this new engine in this 9 car. Talked to Kenny Francis at Lowe's Motor Speedway. They've been working on building lighter race cars. They still have to weigh the same, but it lets them put more lead, especially down low in the frame rails.
Here's Brian Vickers, and let me go back to the topic earlier about the Coca-Cola 600, where Vickers lost net 17 positions on pit road. That is the raw data. Now, that's what we looked at, and what we don't know and would have to do a little further research on is on that one pit stop when he lost 10 positions, did they take 4 tires and a whole bunch of cars take 2? So it may not be strictly the fault of the pit crew. It may be differences in race strategy. All we noted was the net was that Vickers was very fast on the racetrack, but his total on time on pit road caused a net loss of 17 spots.
But we do know that they have had a lot of pit crew changes over there at that 83 car. That's not the same group that, for example, won the Sprint Pit Crew Challenge last year in 2008. A lot of changes there.
New look for Clint Boyer, the Hartford Insurance Company.
Not too bad, Larry. I think, what is he, 11th?
Yep. Quickest, just jumped up there.
Yeah.
Nice pickup.
Not too bad. Well, you know, I just say about Casey Kane and the new engine.
Stickers would be better, but
Stickers might be better.
Meaning brand new tires.
Right. But the thing about Casey Kane and the 9 group over there, when you see how Kurt Busch and Sam Hornish and David Stremme have been running with that new Dodge engine, I mean, that's a visible thing you can see on the racetrack. Drivers have a really bad habit of talking about what other people have, you know, setup wise or whatever it is. But in this case, that was legitimate complaints. You could see that the Penske cars were outrunning the Gillette cars by a good bit, and you got to attribute most of that to the motor.
Now, we just saw Ryan Newman. He becomes the 7th driver to run in the 22-second bracket. Kurt Busch is 10th quickest at a 23:06 is his fastest lap.
And David Rudiman is sitting in the garage just waiting for somebody to bump him off the fastest time.
I don't think he's actually sitting in the garage anymore. I think he's actually out there on another. There he is. He just you know what I think he did? I think he went out there and rolled a set of tires in.
Ooh,
based on the practice monitor.
That's sneaky right there.
Just didn't complete a lap, because if you look at our score monitor, when a car goes out to start a run, it says out. And he just went out and came right back in.
But that, you know, we were talking about Dale Jr. on his run. That's what you get when you go out on stickers. Car will get just a little squirrely with you coming to get the green. And that little bit sometimes is all it takes to keep from winning the pole. So That just puts some security in those tires. You know, when you get out there and Baylor off into turn 3, coming to get the green, and it's going to stick.
So Mike Skinner here in the 36 car, driving for Tommy Baldwin. Mike, you mentioned him a while ago. He's 38th quickest. Now, Mike is going to race his car at a lot of the companion events with the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, or maybe when the Truck Series has an off weekend. Daryl, I said, does that mean you're going to run Daytona? He said, oh, no. He and NASCAR's Jim Hunter and their wives are going over to Goodwood in July. Mike's going to go over there and drive for Red Bull Racing, an event that you and Jeff Hammond actually went over there to.
Yeah, Lord March, I love him to death, and every year he tries to put together something to get a lot of the NASCAR guys to come over there. This year, what they were wanting to do, I don't know if they did or got it pulled together. I know Rick Hendrick's sending a couple of cars over there. He wanted to honor all the former Daytona 500 champions, and when he does that, he wants you to bring the car you want in if you have it. Well, I just happen to have the Tide car, and I was really looking forward to doing that, but scheduling prevented me from doing it. But it's the best worldwide motorsports event that you could ever go to.
Does Lord March serve crab cakes?
No, but they have a huge party on Saturday night that all the dignitaries in the motor racing world show up for.
A little bit lonely out there right now. Drivers making pretty much single car runs, trying to prove on their speed for qualifying, which is coming up later today right here on Speed. Kyle Busch, 8th quickest, just went out.
Okay, that's a pretty sporty number that Rudiman laid down.
It really is.
23.90. That's well, it's 300s quicker than Kane.
Yeah, the track record here was set back in June of 2004. Actually, Jeremy Mayfield has the track record here at a 22.288. I think that track record's safe, but I'd say these guys really crank it up. They're going to get down there maybe in the possibly 2270s, maybe?
Yeah.
2270s?
I believe
80s?
so. Although I will say this, Larry, this is a tough place to go back up your practice time. Because of the concrete, I don't know what it is, but you're always kind of happy if you can back up your practice time, or maybe better in a little bit, but you don't see huge pickups here, I don't think.
Kyle, one of 2 triple duty drivers this weekend. Mike Bliss is the other. Pick up on Bobby Labonte, who is 22nd right now. Carrying the Autism Speaks banner on his Ask.com Ford. He is one of only 6 drivers in this field, 7 drivers in the field, who raced here before the track was concreted. We'll put that number at 6 now that David Starr has replaced Trevor Boys behind the wheel of the 06.
Yeah, they concreted this place headed into the 1995 season, and I was part of one of the cars that came up here and did the tire test. First couple of years, it was quite the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't dare get up off the bottom, and the bottom was pretty treacherous.
Do you know that this is the only racetrack, only time I recall ever having a Sunday morning practice? And we had tire issues here that first time we came back with the concrete, and Goodyear flew in, trucked in, did everything they could, replacement tires, and allowed us to go out on Sunday morning and actually run some practice laps.
And this is one of the very few tracks where I remember NASCAR going out and putting cones up so the drivers would practice in one particular part of the racetrack and not the other.
Yeah, that's an old Dick Beatty trick. He loved to do that. He did it at Wilkesboro, Richmond, places where they'd seal the track.
Right.
And everybody said, well, I'm not going to run up there. It's too slick. He said, I'll fix that.
And he put up the cones.
If you're going to run, you're going to run up there.
See Brad Keselowski here in the 5th Hendrick car this weekend. Right now, Brad is 39th quickest. Couple of great runs his last time, couple of times out. Of course, we know about the Talladega win in the 09 car, and then a good top 10 run for him at Darlington about 3 weeks ago.
And again, to explain the rule, NASCAR allows each car owner to field up to 4 teams. However, they can field a 5th team for a rookie driver in a limited number of races.
You know, talking about Brad, you don't really get to know a guy very well. You know, he kind of one of those flies under the radar kind of guys until he wins a race like he did at Talladega. Boy, that really brought that kid out, though. I loved his interviews. I loved talking to him. He's very articulate, very intelligent young man. expresses himself well. I don't know that I would have realized that had he not won that race at Talladega.
That's true. David Gilliland.
Whoa, David.
He is 28th right now. He's only run 9 laps. The CompUSA.com Chevy.
But he is the fastest of the go-or-go homers right now.
She's an evil piece right now. I say that.
Well, he's on a flyer trying to best 23.23, which is his fastest lap so far.
You know, Mike, I
does.
talked to Slugger Labby, the crew chief on this car, and you mentioned CompUSA. If you look on the back panel, there's a company on there, Charter Air Transport. And what it is, it's a charter company that's trying to help some of the lower budget race teams on their charter surface getting their teams to the racetrack.
Great. We're all for it. It is charterairtransport.com. David Rudiman, still quickest. Here's our Advanced Auto Parts Friday menu. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice is coming up next at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Sprint Cup qualifying for the Coors Light pole. 7 p.m. trackside. Tony Stewart, Mark Martin are the guests. And then 8 o'clock, we'll have the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race. There's your top 5 as they stand. Doesn't look like anybody's going to tip David Rudiman for the top spot.
I think everybody's kind of showing all they've got right now.
I believe Tony Stewart did the same thing that David Rudiman did and went out there and just kind of rolled a set of qualifying tires in. Right now, Tony, he's run 23 laps, but he's 30th quickest.
Oh, Kevin Harvick did catch a piece of the wall with the right rear.
I think, you know, we just said that. I think Rudiman just went back out. Let me see. He rolled those tires in. Yeah, he rolled those tires in. I think he decided he didn't roll them in enough, maybe.
Well, no, he was on a flyer, Darrell. He went from a 90 to an 86.
Okay.
Just now.
Well, that's those tires he rolled in.
Okay.
To see what they, you know, to see what they had in them. So I hope he has another set like that over there. Whoa, what's the Harvick doing?
Little scrape.
A little dicey.
David Rudiman wins practice.
Boy, look at those times, Larry. 86, 92, 93, 94, 95, 98, 98. They're all right on top of each other.
You can nail it. You could probably pick up a couple of tenths. If you miss your mark, you'll lose a couple of tenths.
Hold on a sec. Look at this.
Yeah.
Changed, but all but identical times. The Busch brothers turned identical fast laps to the 1,000th of a second. Why not?
And you know, we've had 70 races here at Dover, and the winner in 37 of those races, over half of them, has come from a top 3 starting spot. I think it's because it's one of those tracks, if you're fast in practice, if you're fast in qualifying, you're fast in the race.
But it also may be because of that old treacherous pit road, and that's how critical it was being down here near the turn 1 end of pit road. It could have a little something to do with it.
Yes, sir.
Well, now the pole winner gets the first pick of pits, but the pole winner has not won here in 6 years.
But no wonder, because they've had, I think I read they have 12 different winners here in the last 12 races.
Right.
It's 12 different. So
it's an exciting place. I'd buy a ticket.
I mean, I don't know. Is there any other racetrack that has a record like that? 12 different winners?
Well, let's see. The first
Talladega had 12.
August race at Talladega, July race at Talladega 500 went 14, I think, before they got a repeat winner, which somebody had to break that string, and you did.
I know it.
But here is the winner of practice, picking up right where he left off in Charlotte, David Rudiman. Nationwide practice next, qualifying a little later on.